All right. I see we have already quite a few people. So welcome everyone. We are going to wait just one more minute to give everyone a chance to join the live room. But good afternoon, good morning. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. My name is Michaela, and I'm part of the marketing team at IHS, and I have the great honor of being here today with these beautiful ladies. And we hope we will offer you a very nice and interesting webinar in the upcoming 1 hour and a half. I'll be more in the background as technical support, answering some of your questions. And I will hand over to Bahar, who will be our co-moderator and also part of the panel today.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning to everyone who is already here. And I think we are waiting a little bit more, but let me just start as the introduction, right? I'm super happy to host this webinar called Feminist Urban Futures and Reflections on Feminist Urban Interventions in the Cities. And I would like to maybe shortly introduce myself. I'm Bahar Sakizlioglu, feminist urban sociologist, working as an assistant professor at the Institute of Housing and Urban Development Studies at Erasmus University, the Netherlands. Together with my colleague Pamela Duran-Diaz, we will host this webinar today. And let me start before introducing all our special guests, special feminist urbanists today. I would like to share with you our starting point for this webinar. It was a simple and beautiful desire to create some space for feminist conversations on the urban. And we were touching elbows in different places, talking about our own work challenges and maybe aspirations, dreams about the feminist city in the future, and using the chance or the opportunity of coming International Women's Day, we decided to put up this webinar together to cut across the differences and similarities and to talk about our stories as feminist urbanists and about the feminist urban futures. So, of course, in a webinar like this, it is needless to say gender is constitutive aspect of how we make, understand, experience, and research cities. Gender norms, roles, and power relations shape the production and experience of urban space and inequalities, and how we ask questions and conduct research about cities, right? Yet gender has been at the margin of urban theory, practice, and research, which reinforces gendered inequalities that mark contemporary urban world. So with this webinar, we invited special guests, feminist urban scholars and professionals to share their gender transformative interventions into the urban, to tackle the discrimination and sexist practices in the cities that we live, unfortunately. So our questions to them were, what are the feminist interventions that you are involved in, your organizations are involved in? What works, how, and why? What do we need to make the feminist city of the future of tomorrow? So I will turn to the speakers, and we have one less speaker. Unfortunately, Giulia Maci couldn't make it due to family emergency from Cities Alliance, and we really wish the best for her, and we will do the webinar without her today. So I would like to have our speakers to introduce themselves and their organization first before we tell you about the logistics of the webinar. Could we start with Sara, please? Sara, you are muted.
Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. I'm Sara Ortiz Escalante. I'm part of Collective Punsis, a cooperative of architects, urban planners, and sociologists, and I'll talk more later about us. And I'm super excited to see more than 200 people connected from all over the world. So thank you for being here today.
Vanessa, can we go on with you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Vanessa Peter. I'm from Chennai in India. So I'm the founder of Information and Resource Center for the Deprived Communities, which is basically a community-centric information hub. I'm glad to be here and thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Vanessa. Ewelina, please.
Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. I don't know from which part of the world you are connected with us, but I'm happy that over 200 people are here. Thank you, Bahar, for invitation. I'm Ewelina Jaskulska from Warsaw, Poland. Together with Honorata Grzesikowska, we provide Architektoniczki Foundation, and we work on gender equality in built environment. And I'm also, as Sara, super excited to today's event. So let's start.
Yes, sharing the excitement. I will ask my colleague Pamela to introduce herself, please.
Thank you very much. I will be very fast. I am Pamela Duran-Diaz, and I am a senior planning specialist here at IHS in Rotterdam.
Okay, well, so a little bit, a quick note about how we will operate in the webinar. So we asked our speakers to do a pitch of around 10 minutes pitch, covering the information about their organization and the feminist urban interventions that they're involved in, and how do they envision the feminist city of tomorrow and what we would need for that. So we will have the pitches, and then that will be followed by a collective discussion, conversation about our reflections on each other's pitches. So it will be a space for conversation, and we will talk about what works and what we would need across different geographies and how to mainstream these feminist transformative approaches. And during this session, we will also incorporate the questions of the audience. So please feel free to write your questions under the Q&A box. And we will use our time to incorporate as much as possible of the questions in the collective conversation we have. And if you have specific questions to our speakers, please write them in the comment or in the chat part to keep them apart, and you will have their contact details to also connect to the speakers after the webinar. And we created one last thing before we start. We created a survey to map different feminist interventions all around the world to get your input to connect to different organizations, and we will be really glad if you can fill out the survey that will be sent to you with the link after this webinar. So let's get started, and I will invite first Sara to kick off the discussion with her pitch.
Okay, hello everybody. As I said, I'm part of a collective which name is Collective Punsis, and we've been working since 2005 for more than 18 years now in how to integrate a feminist perspective in urban planning. So we are a cooperative, a non-profit cooperative. We are based in Barcelona, Spain. We are architects, sociologists, urban planners. We recently have incorporated also some social educators and economists to our group. And we are a group of diverse origins and ages. And we are based in Barcelona, but over all these years, we've done work not only here in Catalonia and Spain, but also in other cities and other regions, mostly from Latin America, because of the connections that we have with other feminist colleagues and also organizations over there. I'm going to be talking that for us, what is important in order to integrate or to look at the feminist urban futures is to really integrate in the projects in different ways an intersectional feminist perspective. How in that way it's essential to do it through community participation, and I'll focus most of that. We also integrate in our work an ecofeminist perspective, understanding that we cannot talk about sustainability and climate emergency without making visible also what ecofeminism has bring to the picture for so many years, and particularly all the things that we have learned from indigenous women's and feminist and indigenous feminism. And also we are, as I said, we are cooperative. So also through the work that we do inside our cooperative, but also when we work with institutions, when we work with other groups, we try also to break one of the things that have replicated the toxic cities that we have today is to break with the capitalism and the neoliberal system. So also we try to apply a feminist and a social and solidarity economy perspective in the work that we do to change at least, or to try to change our economic system. So as I said, we have been working in many cities and developing more than 500 projects in over 100 cities and towns, not only here, but also internationally. And we do a variety of things. How we do that, how we try to change, to do a radical transformation of our everyday life spaces. That's what we try to do through our view of feminist urban planning. We do capacity building. We feel that it's essential to do capacity building and training with municipal staff, urban planning staff, mobility staff, but also with universities and with other nonprofit organizations, because it's through theoretical and also practical trainings that we are able to connect with what it entails to integrate a feminist perspective. And I think this is essential to do any project. After that, we also do a lot of projects that we do assessments, audits, to analyze how spaces work and analyze them from an intersectional feminist perspective. And we like to do oftentimes this through community participation, through really community participation, not through participatory process that legitimate oftentimes political decisions. We do also policy advice and consulting to institutions in municipal plans, but also mobility plans and other regional plans. And often when we can access small grants, we do also participatory action research and some transformation of the spaces. So I want to share how we do that and what are the objectives of the work. As I said before, we live in a world that is mostly urban, that most people around the world live in urban areas and cities, but the way that the cities have been developed historically has been developed from a very androcentric perspective, and from a capitalism, from a patriarchal perspective that also has been a colonial perspective, replicating a vision from the north in context without respecting this history and the memory of these territories, but also responding to the needs of a particular minority of our society. Usually when we say that cities have been planned from a androcentric perspective, it's because they have been planned and they continue being planned thinking on a citizen type that often is associated to a white middle class man with a full-time job and with all his capacities. Responding to that, we know that for over 5 decades they have been feminists, not only in the academia but also in the activist movement and in different organizations around the world. They have contested this way of doing transformation in urban areas and also pushing to change this view and to place at the center people's everyday lives, and also to make visible gender inequalities and other social inequalities that are reproduced to the way that cities have been planned. So with all this genealogy and history in urban planning and the contributions that the feminist movement have been done, the way that we present our work is that we want, in all the projects, we want to pursue 3 objectives. to change the priorities and place care and also people's everyday life at the center of urban decisions. We work through the City of Care. Also to make cities safer for women and safer for all, to gain women's and other identities autonomy, making also changing the way that we approach safety and security from a feminist perspective. And we do that through community participation from an intersectional perspective, and particularly promoting women's and other identities participation in urban planning and mobility processes, because we have been often and historically excluded in our diversity as technicians, but also as residents and neighbors. So I want to stop one moment. I was to spot one moment in why we talk about feminist urban planning, because oftentimes we have been challenged the why we use the word feminism, and for us is kind of our activism to make visible that is through feminist theory and feminist practice that this vision of urban planning has been proposed and is being implemented right now. And it's this work that has been done over these 50 years in different places around the world, from other cooperatives like Matrix and Women Design Services that were located in the UK, but also the women from North Europe that were talking about everyday life infrastructures, the Italians that were talking about time policies in cities, all the work about safe cities for women in Canada, but also in many Latin American cities through the Red Mujer y Habitat of America Latina, but also cities that have implemented in practice that, like the case of Vienna, and more recently the case of the municipality in Montevideo, with Silvana Pisano's implementing also feminist urban planning projects. For us, one of the things that is key in order to change and in order the way that we plan cities and in order to integrate this feminist perspective is through community participation. We believe that the experts of a territory are the diverse people that inhabit that territory. And that means that we have to make visible 51% of the population that has been excluded historically, which are women and other identities, in their diversity, in their intersectional diversity, people from different origins that have different agencies, different capacities, people from the LGBT community. And this is essential because if we are going to make changes in the communities, in the cities, that has to be done with the people who live in there. If not, we'll be failing those communities, but also oftentimes the transformations that urban planning departments propose don't respond to the needs and oftentimes have more negative consequences. Also, for us, it's essential that when we do community participation in the different parts of a community process, it's important also to integrate an intersectional feminist perspective. There are groups that do participation, but oftentimes they don't make visible how also the way that we participate reproduce gender dynamics and oppression dynamics that if we don't make visible in the participatory processes, will continue perpetuating certain inequalities. But also to integrate a feminist perspective in community participation means also to make visible the activities that people do on the care sphere, on the productive sphere, as well as all the issues related with safety. And we have done that over the years. We have published different guides because we are kind of obsessed and very committed in building knowledge and from knowledge that has been accumulated through participatory process with thousands of people, with thousands of women that we have been working over the years. And we have published different participatory methods that are all free to access through our website, mostly in Catalan and Spanish and some in English, to apply this to different topics, to public space, to mobility, to facilities and services, to how we can also design housing, but also how to develop urban and territorial plans. I want to finish here, but maybe later on in the debate, we can share how this can be done to integrate this gender perspective, this feminist perspective in, for example, mobility regional plans that are committed to integrate that as objectives, but also in the way that we do the participatory processes to transform public spaces, in the way that we can also transform, for example, spaces and facilities such as educational spaces, such as schools or school playgrounds, where still lots of gender and oppressive dynamics are being replicated, and also we can integrate a feminist perspective on that. And the access to basic infrastructures as public toilets, we can also integrate a feminist perspective, and also actually thinking and planning access to public toilets. It's a central project in feminist urban planning, but also in a lot of public transportation, publics and mobilities, those that entail public transportation by bus, by metro, by train, but also cycling mobility that also is mainstream by a very androcentric and sexist perspective. So I'll be happy to share more details and some of the learnings that we have got from some of these projects after we have a larger discussions. Thank you for listening, and looking forward for the debate.
Thank you, Sara. Thank you for this great presentation. I will ask Vanessa to be the second.
Yeah. So can we have the slides, please?
Yes, 1 second, they're loading.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So greetings, everyone. So today, the presentation is basically going to be based on our experience of working with, the most vulnerable communities. And I just wanted to also in the presentation emphasize on the need for facilitating participatory mechanisms, because we find that in many times, increasingly, cities are viewed for the plans as well as the the budgetary allocations are all usually for the affluent sections, and we often found that in our engagement with the stakeholders, different stakeholders, including the policymakers, we find that the deprived as well as the disadvantaged communities are often excluded. So this is exactly what, just a brief introduction about IRCDUC is. I'm the founder of Information and Resource Center for the Urban Deprived Communities. So we have designed it as a community-centric information hub, basically because we found that the deprived urban communities did not have access to information, did not have a platform to voice out their concerns. So this was an initiative that we started. It is a decade old now. And basically, where we work, we engage with women residing in low-income and informal settlements. We work with women in resettlement sites and in homeless situations. So a brief introduction about the context of the presentation is Chennai is located in the southernmost part of the country in the state called Tamil Nadu. And Chennai is a city of many water bodies. So we find that many of the, often at least in the last 2-3 decades, we have over 60,000 families who have been forcefully evicted and resettled in the peripheral areas of the city. And we often found that the impact of such forced evictions and inadequate resettlement has an adverse impact on women. So this is the exact context where we started working, and we thought, we should kind of ensure that the voices of the marginalized are mainstream. So what we do from our angle, how do we, work with the different groups is that, one, we identify and enhance capacities of women leaders through our community resource centers. So wherever we work, we have these resource centers set up. And these are completely operationalized by the women from the settlements themselves. So secondly, we ensure that timely dissemination of relevant information in the vernacular language, because we find in India, the official language is English, and in Tamil Nadu, it is Tamil. And we often find that most of the documentation are not available. Important information about policy schemes are not available in the vernacular language, but it will be in English, and that too in some web portal, which may not be accessible for the vulnerable communities. So that is one work that we do. And we collaborate with multiple stakeholders to strengthen the struggles of the community leaders. And how we do it, how we capture their voices, is by launching campaigns and producing evidence-based researches, people's audit, citizens report, etc. So one of the things that we have seen as a success is that when we set up Community Resource Center, it is primarily the affected communities or the women themselves there. And we have seen that this model has worked well, because I would like to give you an example of how in one of these resettlements, we have massive resettlement sites in Chennai, which has about 20,000 to 25,000 houses. And most of these resettlement sites have a lot of problems because of forced evictions and the distance from their previous place of habitation to the resettlement site. You find there's loss of livelihood, loss of income, and a lot of non-access to basic amenities. So we found that, some of these women leaders were able to, take up the entire struggles of the sites. And that is exactly how our community resource centers are usually a space where we identify and capacitate women leaders from the communities. So what do we do there is, as I said earlier, we translate the various acts and legislations and schemes in Tamil in a format which is very easier for the community women to kind of understand. And what we also do is, in that process, we realize that we connect the different stakeholders, and especially government officials and political leaders. And I would like to narrate one of the, feedback which one of our women leaders from the resettlement site shared with us, when she said, initially, when we used to go and meet the government officials, they don't even treat us well. They kind of don't even... they will just shoo us away as if, we are, we cannot be there. But now they say, after we have taken up a lot of issues, we have brought it to their notice, after we have demonstrated changes, today the government officials are inviting them, offering them coffee, and then listening to them. So she says, this is exactly the kind of changes that has been happening. And this, yet again, by sharing this case study, we would like to say this is exactly what the cities should be doing, including the marginalized communities in the various processes. So we also believe, in our experience, we have also seen that children are agents of change in their communities. And there have been lots of, the photograph that you see here is how children have drawn the various issues of their communities, and they are able to meet the elected representative of the urban local body, and are able to express their views and also bring about changes in their own community. So this is a clear-cut example of why there should be inclusion of women, gender diverse groups, as well as children, and various other vulnerable communities, including the elderly, the persons with disability, LGBTQ+. So many groups inside the decision-making process, because people know what is best for them. And often policies, as well as the programs and schemes, are formulated by people somewhere else for these communities. So we believe that the community resource centers are but platforms for people to express their opinions. And how we do it is, we do a lot of women-led processes for identifying and prioritizing their own issues, and ensuring that their concerns are raised and included in the policy formulation processes. So, for example, when government was evolving a housing policy for the state, there were no consultative processes, and we found from the resource center, we conducted these alternative processes, whereby we are able to get the viewpoints of the communities to the government. And the best way we did was through a lot of participatory mechanism. And very interestingly, we were able to demonstrate to the government that this is exactly how a participatory mechanism should work. And, it's usually not select few people that, you call for discussions. So that's something, and it is very similar to what Sara has presented before. And we also have realized these community-led initiatives work well. And for example, this is one of the resettlement sites where women did a safety mapping, and we realized that they were able to point out exactly where it's safe and where's unsafe and what could the government do. And after this mapping process, we realized that government was able to put up, simple things like street lights and police booth matters a lot for community members, and especially in these settlements where you have there is higher crime rate, basically because of the employment related issues. And these processes have also ensured that women are able to understand what amenities are there for them. For example, there are some population norms where they say if you have 30,000 families, then you're 30,000 persons in one particular location, you're eligible for a community health center, but doesn't work that way. So when these these rapid assessments which our women leaders have taken up, the infrastructure audits that women have taken up, one has helped them understand that there are certain norms by which there are services that need to be provided. And when they are doing the audit, they have also realized that these norms have been violated. And when they know that these rights have been violated, they're able to assert for their rights. And because of such kind of processes, you find that in many of the resettlement sites, we've had increased number of schools, fair price shops, daycare centers, even burial ground, because of the lack of participation of the affected communities in various of these processes, we find that one, there are no infrastructure. Secondly, there are no infrastructure which will benefit these groups, especially women in the other vulnerable sections. So we have realized. So what we have realized is how, once the process of empowerment happens, we believe that information is empowerment. Once the process of empowerment happens, there is no turning back. So here there are photographs of how women were able to assert and say, hey, this is the kind of water that we get here. Would you, this is a photograph where they actually asked one of the officials, can you drink this water? So that is a kind of, from people who were initially repressed so much, pushed out of the city, made to reside in settlements which are extremely does not have the basic amenities. Women were able to assert for their rights, and today we find that some of our community leaders have been elected as presidents or vice presidents of the Residents Welfare Association. So they've been able to break that barrier. They've been able to, what we have seen is that women were able to break the chains of poverty and patriarchy in the societies. And it was a big, difficult challenges, because we knew some of these women leaders who were elected in the Residents Welfare Association were dragged to the police station. Complaints have been filed against them, but yet their commitment, was very, very inspiring for most of us. And these are how, these women, they are empowered, and they don't, stop with that. They were able to reach out to the rest of the women in the community. And I should say, we have a Center for Women and Children in one of the settlements, and our community counselor is a survivor of domestic violence and a mother of a survivor of child sexual abuse. So they today, from a position of a survivor, they are today becoming leaders and are able to address situations of violence in the settlement, able to help people seek justice. So this is something that is very inspiring for us. And this is exactly what we've been trying to tell the government, that get the voices of the people who matters the most. Do not, evolve policies for them without them. What is for us should be in consultation with us. So this is a stark image of how some of our monitoring, we also do monitoring of various schemes and programs and policies. And not only that, we also monitor the representation of women in various committees. So this is a result of one of our analysis, which reveals that we have ward committees in our urban local body, and we saw that only 7% of the ward committee members were women. So there, once we started analyzing this, we were able to present a representation to the government saying, how do you expect a gender responsive cities when you don't have people representing in your various styles of decision making. And so this is something which is a campaign that we have taken up. We also have engagement with media because, especially when our government is coming up with gender budgets and we have a policy for women in the state. In order to get the voices of the communities inside, we engage with media, and we also take up collective action with different collectives, including women's collectives for the sexually diverse groups, collectives of elderly, and so on and so forth. So this is something that collaboration with multiple stakeholders have worked for us. And finally, we strongly believe that cities can be inclusive and gender responsive only when the policies and programs for urban development is evolved through participatory planning processes with enhanced participation of women and gender diverse groups, especially from vulnerable sections, because we feel that it doesn't happen. And we also strongly would like to say that the lack of consultative and participatory process results in diluting the gender approach in the cities. Thank you.
Many thanks, Vanessa, for this rich presentation. We will move to Ewelina. Waiting for the slides now. Yes, ready. Ewelina, you are muted.
Oh, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ewelina. I represent Architektoniczki. We are based mostly in Poland. And who we are? We are the first Polish feminist collective. We are two of us, architects and urban planners, but we cooperate with sociologists, psychologists, and futurologists in order to create more equal spaces. And we are working on research methodology to find out how to design better spaces and what does it mean equal space. And we work mostly with Vlinta. Vlinta are female part of LGBTQ group. We work on domestic mobility, everyday urbanism, city of care. We also concentrate on spaces for girls, and we work with women in mobility. And as architects and urban planners, we work in scales from millimeters to kilometers. So from apartment to the whole city. Last 2 years we spent on the Erasmus Plus grant. We visited the Europe feminist collectives. Also we visited Punseis, and we were changing our knowledge, talking and exchanging our researches and methodologies. And we are present in social media, in Instagram, Facebook, of course, and LinkedIn. How do we gather our data? We do exploratory walks. We did first night walk here in Poland. We also do sensibilization walks. We gather data through some various workshops and lectures and presentations, and also through observations and diagnosis of interventions. And we are thinking, what if our feelings, feeling the space and how the space affects us were as important as technical rules, for example, fire regulations, when we designed the city. And we were trying to find out how to do that. That's why we started to do our methodology with sociologists here in Poland from the academy. And we took the methodology of time spatial sequence of Polish urban planner Kazimierz Weichert. He did his methodology while walking the street. He drew his curve of impressions, whether the street was boring, it was rated from 0 to 3, and the better impressions the space, the perspective gave him, the rated was higher. And he called his curve as a curve of impressions. We took his methodology from time spatial sequence to equal spatial sequence and into our curve of emotions. And what we are researching. Weichert, this is his methodology. This is from boring street to the most important urban perspective. And we were researching security, inclusion, aesthetic, and comfort of use. So while Weichert checked perspective views, in our feminist perspective, we were researching comfort of use. While he was researching architecture and details, we were researching safety. While he was researching urban form, we were researching inclusion. And when he was checking the greenery in a space, we were researching aesthetics. And these are the results. These are the results of our research from the first night walks. And this is according to our methodology, what parts of the city of the tour we did should be changed from aesthetic perspective, from comfort of use, from inclusion, because here women felt excluded, and from a feeling of safety. And only 2 places from, according to Weichert's methodology, should be changed. So according to this, comparing those 2 methodologies, our feminist methodology and men methodology, we can see the perception of male and female. Yes, what should be changed? Because as architects and urban planners, we have to translate, we have to translate everything into built environment. So that's why we are working on this. And what those results gave us, that the scale for women 0 to 10 is not enough. We had the worst here below our scale some ratings. The safety aspect, well, the lowest rated. About between 0 to 5 ratings. So the worst ratings were so-called non-places, so places that are anonymous and they do not belong to anyone. And the best ratings, well, so-called third places, so places where we spend our free time. And we think that city design influence our emotions, but do our emotions influence into design the cities? That's why we are trying to answer that question, and that's why we are making our next steps. We are working on application to research spaces to put our methodology into virtual environment into application. We use also to research neurodiversity using device to map the brain stimulation in different environments. And actually we are right now we are working on comparing our methodology with this methodology of researching the space. And we are our aim is to create a map according to our 4 points, so where women feel more excluded or included, where they feel feel safe or not, and where is the better for them comfort of use, which places. And right now we are working, we are a part of FEMACT. FEMACT, I don't know if some of you know AIRBACT. It's the European program to make cities more green and more sustainable. And this year started the first FEMACT projects. It is the project that research cities from a feminist perspective, and Krakow in Poland is the first city in Poland that participate in that project, and we are also participating in that. So that's very briefly, shortly. I hope that I managed to do it in 10 minutes, and thank you very much.
Ewelina, thanks a lot. The timing was really great. So in the heat of introduction, I actually forgot that on behalf of IHS, I also am presenting. And that was the introduction fatigue, I guess. But right now I'll take like 10 minutes to introduce what we have at IHS, what we do at IHS regarding feminist interventions in urban education advisory, capacity building, and research. So the idea here was that we would be here as the gender team, but two of my colleagues are not available, and they are in the fields actually working with communities, women, to do their research. So I will be talking on behalf of two of them, and Pamela is here to jump in to talk about her research. And maybe a little bit about IHS at large. It's an education, research, and advisory institute based at Erasmus University. And the gender team is making some feminist interventions in the education, capacity building, and research fields, working with urban professionals, communities, and scholars, feminist scholars, of course. And now I will give you a little bit of taste of what we do. So if I start with capacity building and urban professional education and our interventions in there, I would start with an example of a course that we have given as elective 2 years ago, and now we are trying to turn this into a short course for urban professionals. And the idea of the course, which is called Gender in Urban Theory, Practice, and Research, is to have participants, urban professionals, who want to learn why gender matters for urban development and how to make plans, policies, research, urban gender sensitive. So the aim is not only to have urban professionals to think critically about gender and co-constitution of gender and the cities, but also critically think about and apply gender and intersectional perspective to assess projects, plans, and policies. If I go on, we have some tailor-made trainings for urban professionals on how to integrate gender on urban planning, climate change, housing, and other related fields. And these trainings are co-created with urban professionals based on their training needs regarding gender and urban theory and relevant skills. If I continue with our methodology and pedagogy here while designing and doing these trainings, we reflect on our methodology and pedagogy and trying to incorporate participatory feminist tools such as, I can give you the example of storytelling. For instance, my colleague used to co-create knowledge and train urban professionals. And in one of our courses, we used it as an assessment tool to actually make urban professionals to incorporate, understand and incorporate these participatory tools and prioritize the everyday knowledges in their professional life. So if I continue with our research very quickly. So At IHS, we do feminist interventions in urban research, and in most of the research that I will be now telling you about, colleagues and me embrace feminist participatory action research, not only to, I guess, contest the mainstream exploitative research, but also to foster urban change while co-producing knowledge with urban communities and scholars and policymakers at the same time. So if I start with my colleague Maci van Eert, who is not here with us today, she's involved in several projects in India, working on access to info, digital inclusion of women in resettlement sites in Chennai, working with Vanessa also. And they're working on economic empowerment of resettled women and through community workshops and training of policymakers and co-creation of outputs, research outputs such as documentaries on gender impact of resettlement. She's aiming to create feminist change on the ground. And if I continue with Pamela and ask Pamela to jump in.
Yes, thank you very much, Bahar. Well, I am lucky enough to be working in this wonderful project called Land Labs Quetzalan in Mexico in collaboration with Universidad de las Américas Puebla. And in this project, we work directly with the indigenous women of Quetzalan, of Nahua ethnicity, with participatory gender transformative approaches to develop strategies for biodiversity conservation, for mitigation of climate change, and also recording traditional indigenous knowledge. We also involve architecture students of Universidad de las Américas Puebla through their social service linked to Tlali Amealco. And there we are, for example, designing together a house for a Nahua family based on vernacular earthen architecture, making use of local materials with passive systems to cope with climate change. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a workshop to embroider the landscape, where the indigenous women of the region that are known by their textile creative abilities map their territory with fabrics and using a patchwork method. I am very proud of this project. We can see our partners over there holding diplomas. This is because back in April 2023, we received an award by the Senate of the Republic and the Humbert Foundation as a recognition of our efforts to support the preservation of tangible and intangible heritage. Also the preservation of biodiversity and the empowerment of indigenous women through community building. Thank you.
Okay, I will go on with Carolina's and my research. To start with Carolina's, Carolina Lunetta is an urban planner and right now actually in Brazil doing her research on feminist urban struggles, and that's an action research and focusing on the processes through which Brazilian women leaders and activists in social housing movements occupy and transform vacant buildings into residential spaces. So she's using a participatory feminist methodology and mapping empowerment trajectories of these women while they claim their right to participate in the production of housing in Sao Paulo. And as I said, she is right now in Brazil and doing her seminar series under the Urban Studies seminar series. I will go on with my research that is engaged in feminist methodology, and I am incorporating feminist social reproduction lens to understand and contest the production of gender inequalities and dispossessions during processes of gentrification and displacement in neighborhoods. So in a nutshell, I think what keeps me busy these days is the feminist future of housing. And I especially focus on emancipatory potential of collective organization of care and marginalized work to think about and act for the future of feminist housing. And very last thing, I believe in building networks of care among feminist urbanists and devote some of this effort in this matter, being active in networks such as Mediterranean Network of Feminist Urban Planners and Urbanists. So this is what we're doing in a nutshell at IHS. And if I just summarize it, like trying to incorporate feminist principles and lens into urban education, capacity building and research, and building networks of solidarity and care among feminist urban scholars, professionals and activists, which we believe really important. This webinar is also a part of this. And working with communities, policymakers to intervene in the daily during trainings and research to create the change as we there. And I think I will leave this for the discussion part. Building the feminist city and starting from today. So I could maybe stop sharing. Yes. Okay. So after all the presentations, all the contributions from all speakers, we will open this part, turn it into a collective discussion, and I will leave it to Pamela to co-moderate.
Thank you very much, Bahar, and thank you everybody for these amazing presentations. We got to see very insightful experiences to integrate the eco-feminist perspective in city planning with a community approach. We also saw the resettlement of thousands of people through evictions, and how the empowerment through information and community and capacity building can promote to leadership roles in feminist urban planning. And we also got to see a methodology to contrast the usual perspective versus the feminist lens. So thank you very much for this. I can see that the people are very engaged in the discussion in the chat, and we also have a lot of questions in the Q&A section. So I am excited to facilitate this engaging conversation and explore key themes and insights from the experiences that our panelists shared. I would like to start with some of the questions that were posted in the chat, and I have been reading through them and thinking of how to moderate this for everybody to get a voice. So I would say maybe we can address some of the questions to some people in particular. For example, there is one question that I would like to ask Vanessa, because she showed a graph that I think might be very relevant to answer this. A question from Kezia Onyango says, yeah, would you argue that the designs are done to be sexist, or that the decision makers involved are largely male and therefore do not consider female needs?
Okay. See, first, from our experience, what we feel that the policymakers do not want to include this, are reluctant to have this feminist lens, basically because of the patriarchal structure. And we also find it is not all the time also, because there are times when we have that the existing feminist views are very lightest views also. That is also there. You know, people who are able to get their voices are affluent sections of the community. So the subaltern feminism or the feminism, the social feminist aspects needs to be further, kind of pushed in. And what we feel is it's not because majority of them are women. We also find that patriarchy is something that even women and other communities could have. It's something basically to, one, there is a need for challenging the existing power structure itself. And that can happen only when our voices are collective, and whose voices matter is only when the vulnerable communities are able to assert for themselves. So sometimes it's basically not numbers, but from my experience of working very closely also with the government, we feel that most of the times we'll have to, only these statistics saying only 7% of women, and only when we are saying you redo the law and at least ensure that we get 30 or 40 or even 50% of reservation in these seats only works finally. So one, definitely we need to push for numbers. Second, when we push for numbers, we need to also ensure that the voices of not just the elitist feminist groups are heard, but also the subaltern groups are definitely featured there.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. I have another question this time for Ewelina, and I would like to address it to you because you showed also a methodology or a methodological approach to feminist urban planning. Abebe Chala asks, what steps can be taken to promote gender equality and eliminate gender-based discrimination in the current world situation where gender differences are considered insignificant? I'm sorry, Ewelina, we cannot hear you.
A lot of work to do is here. Firstly, we as an architect and urban planners, we want to translate, as I said, everything into built environment. That's why we are conducting concrete researches because we work in very concrete specific area, and this is our field of work. And to do, actually, we should start from the education and from the proper design of schools and schoolyards, because the education is the basis, yes. And when no matter what kind of the best education lesson about gender equality we do for kids, it means nothing when kids go out from the school and they face places that, for example, if the school is football centric, and most schools in the world are football centric, and when girls cannot go and play football or cannot be in the center of a schoolyard, so this is the first barrier that they face. They have to face, yes. And later, also, I was here on a conference here in Warsaw, in the Institute of Democracy, and they were talking about the elections and gender equality of elections. And as I said, we can empower women. We have to empower women, but first we have to empower girls. Yes, if we empower girls, if we make them visible and give them the voice, then women will have the voice. So actually, this is from basic, and this is the topic from the next 50 years to work on, yes. And also I think that we have to engage also men into this process, because without them also gender equal, then we won't achieve gender equal. So actually we have to also concentrate into cooperating and looking for allies over there, and men who understands female perspective, who understands feminist perspective. And that's what we were working also while working on this methodology. We wanted to show why this is so important to look from a female perspective into built environment. That's why we wanted to show and compare how men looks at the environment at the city and how woman looks at it, and what does she feel and what he feels about the environment, and what spaces should be changed according to women and according to men, because we are different, yes. So actually I'm not sure if I answered properly question, but
I think you did, and I think you answered more than one question that we had in the chat already. So thank you very much, Ewelina. Indeed, education and congruence with whatever is being educated is very important, and it's also crucial to have female references across disciplines. Otherwise, the girls that will be the women of tomorrow, they will have no inspiration sources, and this is why we're here. This is what we're trying to tackle, right? There is a question that is addressed directly to Sara. posted by Daniela Gutierrez. She says, thanks for your presentation. I'm a researcher and project manager at a global NGO called Bikes. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's focused on urban cycling. We have a particular project that focuses on increasing access to cycling for care journeys, which has been piloted in Mexico, Turkey, and India. I wonder if you have experienced any particular challenges in your participatory processes, such as participation fatigue or perceptions of tokenism, especially from groups with additional vulnerabilities, for example, migrant women, trans women, and so on.
Thank you for the question. Daniela, right? And nice to meet you. Actually, I would say no. I would say that we need to work more with women in their diversity, but with an approach that really is transformative participation and not tokenist participation. And above all, when we do projects from bottom up, they can experience maybe tokenism or fatigue, or maybe that when projects come from institutions top down, but our experience working with a diversity of groups of women, migrant women, women of color, women with different gender diversities. We are doing, for example, a project now with women who are in risk reduction programs and who are drug users, is that oftentimes if you work with them and understand their times, understand their needs, accompany through the process, and approaching also the process through the ethics of care, I think it's a very powerful situation to do a participatory projects with them, because it's a way to identify collectively the needs, also approaching also the different issues, the different projects from a humility view, in the sense that they are the experts or their territory, of their community, of the problems that they face, of their needs, of their desires. And our roles as urban planners, as facilitators, is that to facilitate the knowledge they have, to find the ways that we adapt the methods to accompany the creation and the visibilization of this knowledge that oftentimes mainstream planning don't take into account and doesn't value it. And when you adapt the methods, the participatory methods through certain groups, you create a safe space also for those women to feel that they are the experts, that they have a lot of knowledge, and that this knowledge is valuable and it has to be visible. This creates an environment that definitely has a lot of benefits for all the people who are involved. And for us also, taking an ethics of care approach means also looking at issues of collective reflexivity, understanding also reciprocity in the process of research, in the process of participation, looking at accountability methods and strategies also to make that there is not a top-down situation, but that we try to break our hierarchies in the way that we produce knowledge, right? And that means in different ways. That might be, for example, respecting the times of the different groups with whom we are participation. We are doing participation oftentimes when there are institutions that do top-down processes. They have a timeline, they want to answer certain questions, and they don't respond to the needs of the characteristics of the group. So also to do like a feminist participatory processes means respecting the times of the group that are participating, and also the interests and the needs that oftentimes, or it might be that it doesn't respond to the question that you are looking for. So this flexibility is also important, and also find ways also to value and compensate the time. One of the things that feminist action research and feminist participation criticize is that oftentimes the participation is demanded, but we don't value the time that we have little time for participating, that women put in these processes. So we have to find ways also critically that in our society criticize that we cannot do participation for free, without any exchange, without any benefit for participants, that we have also to criticize that participation is also one of the works that we do for caring our communities. So we have to find ways that we value this participation through compensation, through individual or community compensation, different ways that also has to be ways also to responding to that. I think there's a large body of work and practice and literature that cover that. So it'll be difficult to answer in a webinar, but I hope that this helps to reflect.
Thank you very much. I think you've covered a lot of points, and you mentioned some keywords as well. For example, you were talking about the importance of diversity and the importance also to adapt participatory methods to vulnerable stakeholders, to empower them as well. And I would like to highlight also that Vanessa showed in her slides a spectrum of public participation that goes beyond informing or consulting, but empowering the community. So thank you very much for your answer, because I think it puts it all together. I have there are plenty of questions in the chat, but I don't think we have enough time to go through them all. So what I would like to do is to pose one question for the three of you to answer. The order, if you don't mind, would be Vanessa, Ewelina, and Sara, just to keep the same structure as in the questions. So I would like to know from your point of view, how can we promote the mainstream adoption of feminist approaches to urban planning across geographical regions, across cultures, across different legal frameworks?
See, from my what I would like to say is, there are a couple of domains that we need to start focusing on, and from our experience, it has to be at different levels. One, we have to ensure or facilitation collectivization process of different vulnerable sections, because definitely, united voice is much more powerful. Secondly, I think one thing that we have realized is we need to look into a lot of materials on this, because we still feel, for example, if you look at gender responsive housing, we don't have much of a material at all. It is very, very limited. So how do we create a lot of materials on that? Because what we have to, what I strongly believe is the existing narrative is very discriminatory. The existing narrative is anti-poor. The existing narrative is anti-human rights in many of the times. So I think we need to have on board the communities as co-creators of different materials which could start influencing. Because from our experience, we have realized we need to when we engage with policymakers, when we engage with the political representatives, it is very important that we have such kind of strong materials which will help us in our advocacy. And that is exactly where we also in all our interventions, we feel that we need to have a very strong engagement with the policymakers, with the media, with the multiple stakeholders, to ensure that we ensure that people's voices are heard. Especially there is a strong gender lens to it. So from my experience, what I would sum up for this is that if we need to have the policymakers recognize intersectionalities, I think it's time that we define the narratives. And by we say the people from the different diverse backgrounds, and that is exactly when things will change and it will be mainstreamed.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Ewelina, is there anything you would like to add to this?
Well, yes, actually, I think that we have to give gender equality appropriate rank on and work on different levels, from education to empowering women to proper design and changing built environment and proper changing of gender representation in public space, because also gender representation, not only historical representation as monuments on street names, but gender representations on billboards is also very important. Also policy makers, as Vanessa told, but actually for me, what I've heard here from the previous presentations, what I even wrote was what was important for me. I loved that mapping safe, unsafe spaces that Vanessa is working on, and I actually loved when Sara told not about participatory processes, but about community participation and community processes. This is what is important, that we put the community on the first level, not the process itself, but the community. And this is what we are working on, yes? And that we put first that community, we put first women, we put first people and society instead of one man that fits all. So actually that's my opinion.
Thank you so much, Ewelina. Sara, last but not least.
I want to be provocative and finish provocative, also building on Vanessa and Ewelina. I agree what Vanessa says, that in order to mainstream policy making, we have to be there. We have to conquer that space. But I would say that what I want to challenge is that I don't want to do feminist mainstreaming. I don't want to mainstream anything, because every time that we talk about mainstreaming, we lose content, we lose activism, and that we have seen it with lots of years and decades of gender mainstreaming in public policies. So yes, we have to work with policymakers, but we have to acknowledge that also the change has to come from bottom up. We have to, in order to integrate a feminist perspective, we have to view it in a transformative way. In a transformative way means that, at least for us, a feminist transformative planning is that planning that not only challenges the system that is sexist and patriarchal, but the system that also is racist, that is colonial, that is also produces ableism and many oppressions, and that we don't want to integrate a gender perspective to fit in that world that doesn't respond to us. We want to change the world and to make it really feminist, that it's made to the responding to the diversity of people, and not it makes to the diverse people to fit in the suit of a minority, which usually it's a privileged white male crowd. And I want to finish very provocative with that.
Thank you very much.
That if that enters in policy making is because feminist women from the academia, from the practice, from the organizations have done a lot of work to enter these spaces. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sara, for those powerful statements and provocative ones as well. Bahar, I haven't forgotten about you.
I was actually thinking, shall I say something, or will I be able to say? So, but actually, Sara said everything that I wanted to say. Like, I wanted to actually not to reiterate the same thing, but just to say, like, I think critical look at how gender has been incorporated in the neoliberal sexist, colonialist, and all, you know, these oppressive frameworks needs to be really questioned here, and just for the sake of incorporating gender into policies, plans. I don't think this is the aim here, and I really love the contribution of Vanessa, just like defining the framework and where to look. It's actually like what is now making me busy is like where to look for feminist futures, feminist utopias, right? I mean, there has been really a lot of thinkers, scholars, philosophers, just of course writing about feminist utopias, futures. But I myself maybe want to say, which is cutting across many of the comments that have been said, like looking into like disadvantaged neighborhoods, communities of low income, and to see the very strong, it has to be strong because they have to survive, the very strong collective care practices and also work practices that makes the social reproduction in every day and of every day possible. And that for me is the starting point to understand what makes the feminist future. Of course, I'm not nostalgizing what there is in the low-income communities, but if we say anything good about community without nostalgizing it, is the seat for collective care practices. That's how I see, and I think it is also making the reference to Colexi Princess, the city of care. I will leave it there.
Thank you very much. As we reach the conclusion of our discussion, I would like to invite each panelist to share a brief closing remark, encapsulating their key takeaways from today's dialogue in one or two sentences. Maybe we can invert the order this time. We can start with Sara, and then Ewelina, then Vanessa, and of course Bahar.
How difficult. For me, one of the things that were very inspiring today, and also answering to some of the questions where we can find information, look at your local context, right? And look at what groups that are classified that are in the marches are doing, because they are doing great jobs. So I learned a lot from Vanessa today, and that inspired me. So look at things that are not only written in English, please. Not only the things that are written in English are the valuable. There are lots of practices and groups that are working in pushing this into the agenda in many other places where there are other languages that are written. In Latin America, in the Mediterranean, in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Palestine, in so many places, definitely right in India, in so many places. And I think it's important to look at these practices and get inspired by them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Ewelina, the floor is yours. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Very shortly. The first of all thing that came to my mind that we are not an experts. We people are, yes, the communities are who we are working for. So this is the most important things that I realized a few years ago, because when I was studying architecture, I was told that I'm gonna be a god of the space, that I'm gonna be the one who decide how the people are moving around the city and in the building. And then I realized that here architects, mostly in Poland, and urban planners, what do? They just design, but they do not ask questions because they think they know everything. So actually, for me, that the most important things that we are not an experts, and that thing also was resonating from Sara and Vanessa presentations, and they working with the communities. Yes, that was the most impressive for me from these presentations. So congratulations.
Congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
Vanessa, please.
So it was, first of all, it was inspiring for me to hear all the speakers, because we were able to relate so much, only I think we are all geographically in different places, but the kind of work that we're doing has a lot of similarities, and sometimes it's a very lonesome struggle when you're fighting for the rights of the communities. But today's session was extremely inspiring, and another thing was it's a good shared learning platform, because I was able to pick in a lot of points from the different presenters, and definitely, there were a lot of ideas that we could generate from here, and thought, okay, we should definitely try it out here. So it was a very good, enriching experience for me personally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Bahar.
Yes, thank you, Pamela. I am. Many of the things that I wanted to say have been said already, but maybe as an urban scholar, I want to underline that it's, for me, this is really crucial to, and also we discussed this, to question the way that we produce and practice in the city, right? And that is really an important praxis for feminism and feminist urban understanding. And I would like to underline this. Coming from Ewelina, the people are the experts of their cities, of their communities. And going to Sara, that it is important to establish the critical eye on how to incorporate gender feminism into agendas. And to Vanessa, like across geographies, we actually want to talk and define new feminist frameworks, right? And I think this all is bringing me to the importance of like building networks of solidarity and care among feminist scholars and activists and communities. I think this is the takeaway for me. And I'm super happy to hear all the different stories from different geographies. Of course, we missed Giulia. Really sorry for her not to participate today. And it would bring in really a lot more geographies in the picture. But that is what it is.
Thank you very much, Bahar. And also thank you to all of our attendees who have been very engaged in the discussion in the chat, the Q&A.
As we come to the close of our webinar on feminist urban planning,
I want to express my sincere gratitude to our esteemed panelists for sharing their invaluable insights, experiences, and passion as well
for creating more
inclusive and equitable cities.
Today, we've explored the transformative potential of feminist principles in urban planning and in living in cities, and
the importance of centering diverse voices and perspectives in shaping our built environment. So from best practices in feminist urbanism to the challenges and opportunities of mainstreaming with the provocative statement of Sara. So mainstreaming this approach across different regions, across different cultures. Our discussion has hopefully shed light on the critical role that each of us plays in advocating for more just, accessible, and sustainable cities. I would like to encourage each of you to stay engaged, to continue the conversation, to take concrete steps towards advancing feminist principles in your own work, in your own communities, because together we can create cities that are not only resilient and thriving, but truly inclusive and empowering for everyone. And before we conclude, I want to remind you that we will soon be distributing our survey among the participants. Your input through this brief survey, it will take you about 5 minutes to complete, will be immensely valuable in advancing towards a feminist future. I would like to thank our panelists, participants, organizers for making today's webinar a success. Let's keep moving forward together towards a more inclusive and feminist future for our cities. I would like to finish with one phrase of one of our panelists that really struck me. United voice is more powerful. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day, everyone.